Nobody, I think, wanted Rory to fail in the end. It would have been too gut-wrenching, and it's so nice to have a happy ending to a sporting saga that's lasted this long. I mean, my fiance was crying today, and she was crying at watching that interview.
Mate, nothing will make you cry more than watching someone else cry. Mate, he was in tears. The club is owned, Real Bedford, by a local businessman called Pete McCormack. They've been promoted 3 times in 3 seasons, Ollie, right? Another 3 and they're in the Football League. The football club is actually backed, financially and in other ways, by the Winklevoss twins. Hello and welcome along to Not Another Sports Pod, episode number 40 with myself, David, Mr. Oliver Wilson. I am in Buenos Aires, Argentina. The dogs are barking in the background. The LATAM hammer of building works all around me as usual, Ollie. Ollie's in the beautiful English countryside. Listen, mate, I want to dive straight in with the Masters, and I really want to give you the platform, Ollie, to talk us through what you saw tonight and why it resonated so much. Rory McIlroy, of course, winning the career Grand Slam. It was something special. But first of all, how are you, mate? All right?
I'm good. There are so many times that we come on this podcast where something cool in the sporting world has happened over the weekend, and I think you're really excited to talk about it. But it's not too often that we do something that transcends that sporting atmosphere. This weekend was genuinely one of my favourite ever sporting weekends in terms of what we saw just at the Masters. Like, normally I'll say, oh, we had the Super Bowl and we had an F1 race and we had this and we had that, and it all came together to be a great weekend of sport. And this was just one sporting event that genuinely captivated an audience like no other that I can think of.
I'm going to let you talk all about it, Ollie, but I just want to say I'm so pleased we made this an all-sports pod, because it would have been so easy to make this a football pod, because 60-70% is always about football. And I'm so pleased we made this not another sports pod, because we have to talk about some of these things, and you're absolutely right in saying it transcended the sport. Go on then, take it away, Ollie. Rory McIlroy wins the career Grand Slam. Tell us everything about last night. It's really difficult to put it all into words, because for him, it's an 11-year journey. Even Rory described it as a 14-year journey to this moment. 14 years ago, he threw away a 4-shot lead on the last day, ended up finishing 5th, I think it was, that year at the Masters. And obviously he hasn't won a major in 11 years. And the talk about winning a major has been huge year after year, whether it's the Open, the PGA, the US Open, or the Masters. But this is the one that he really wanted the most, because it completes that career Grand Slam. And when you take into account, you've got that, as he was tipped as, the next great of golf, obviously, and has kind of been that for the last 11 years, and just hasn't got over the line with these major victories. You then take into account what's happened maybe in the last 4 years with how golf has had this big divide, and he's been a great charismatic face and a very grown-up and mature figure for the PGA and golf to kind of rally around. Because at the end of the day, Rory McIlroy appears to just want golf. There are rumours he's turned around hundreds of millions away from LIV and has said, no, I just want to play golf how I like to play it. 4 rounds of golf for a major competition, 72 holes, none of this shotgun start. I want to play proper golf. And so to finally have his moment, and in such a dramatic fashion, not just on the Sunday, it all started on the Thursday when Rory's cruising 4 under par and playing this lights out round of golf at one of the trickiest places that nobody can master. Augusta. It just bites back at you every time you think you've got your hands around it and you've worked it out and, I know how to place this ball. It'll catch you out with the wind that whips around it, whether it's the tiredness from the undulations, the plateaus on the greens that are so narrow in terms of windows to try and hit, to give yourself an opportunity for just par, let alone birdie. It's a place you have to fight constantly around. And Rory has 2 double bogeys on the first day that suddenly wipes his card out, and you're going, oh no, this is the capitulation. This is what's going to happen. And then he comes back firing on Friday, flying on Saturday, 6 threes on the scorecard in a row. The first ever player to have 6 threes to start a round at Augusta on that Saturday. And Saturday looked like how you'd want Rory to look like on the Sunday. He looked so locked in, so focused. He suddenly had a 3-shot lead. But then Bryson DeChambeau on Saturday night makes this epic putt on the 18th to make it a 2-shot lead and suddenly have the momentum as he's part of that final group. And you think, God, it's going to be the US Open again from last year. You know, flashbacks, nightmares of Rory against DeChambeau, the mistakes he made, the way DeChambeau was able to rally. It's going to be that again. You can see the misery coming in the headlights in front of you. And suddenly DeChambeau falls away on Sunday. Rory double bogeys to start the round and everyone goes, oh, he's capitulated. But even he said himself, that double bogey settled him in. It suddenly reminded him not to be nervous and to go out and play your game and get over the adversity of that. And if you can do that, you're back in control. And just when you think he's got control on 13, an 85-yard chip into a green. He's playing sensible on a par 5, taking 3 shots rather than trying to get there in 2. And he just knocks it into the water in front of the green. It just trickles off that bank and down into the water, and you think it's another capitulation. And then suddenly the CBS cameras are cutting to Ludwig Orber and Justin Rose because they're making birdies all over the place on the Sunday, and the drama starts to build again. And then Rory has this great birdie on 17, and you think, no, he's going to be okay. He's got it. He just needs to get par down the 18th. He hits the perfect drive, and everybody breathes this sigh of relief. And he's 125 yards from the pin on the 18th at Augusta, needing a par to win the Masters. And he hits a pitching wedge right into the bunker, has to play a bunker shot to get out, 2 putts the green to end up finishing with a bogey. And he and Justin Rose, a player who's now, unfortunately, finished second 3 times at the Masters, a player who's already lost in a playoff before to Sergio Garcia many years ago, have to go toe-to-toe down the 18th once again. And Rory has almost an identical shot. He takes a club less, but he whips it up onto that shelf and dribbles it down the green, down towards the hole, and gives himself a 4-foot putt for the Masters. And it was just, it doesn't do it justice. It's genuinely 4 days of golf that you could sit and watch all over again with the roller coasters. And I have to wonder if a sportsman in that sort of moment recognises the drama that they're creating. And if they don't, if they're in that bubble, if they're locked in, do you go back and watch it? Watch any of it and see how the broadcast was reacting, how the crowd was reacting, and take in the enormity of what you just did and the manner in which you did it. And Tommy Fleetwood said it, Rory won it in the most Rory McIlroy way, which was putting us all through the ringer. And because he is such a good guy, such a great ambassador for this sport, nobody, I think, wanted Rory to fail in the end. It would have been too gut-wrenching. And it's so nice to have a happy ending to a sporting saga that's lasted this long. Yeah, it's amazing. It was genuinely amazing as a weekend.
It was an astonishing watch. It was also one of those sporting events that you're kind of sending WhatsApps around to make sure everyone you know was watching it at the same time. Even people you know aren't into golf, you know. I was just sort of sending messages around, being like, oh, you got to turn on the Masters. A couple of things. I mean, sorry, Ollie, go, yeah.
Well, you're not even a massive golf fan. You're a sports fan. And the fact that it's, you know, early on in the final round of the Masters, and I sent you a message, have you got the golf on? Because this is getting great. And you were like, yeah, I'm in. And even you were just locked in on it. It was fantastic, man.
Yeah, I think you summed it all. I think you summed it all up really well, Ollie. Like a few things that caught my eye. When Rory misses the putt on the 18th, and we're going into a playoff, right? No matter how much sports psychology you've got, no matter how many therapists you've got, no matter how much you're locked in as a professional, Rory McIlroy is still a sentient human being, and the only thing as he walks away can be, oh my God, I've blown it again. I'm into a playoff like that. I'm going to be thinking about that part the rest of my life. I don't think there's enough Stoic philosophy books in the world that can make you not think that. So Rory can only be thinking, oh my God, people are going to be talking about that for so long. I'm going to be replaying that putt when I'm 80 in my head. So to go on and win it from there, I thought was incredibly impressive. I'll tell you a couple of moments that hit me, Ollie. So he walks off the 18 and he's going into this playoff, and he has a moment with his daughter. And I can't remember whether I sent this to you or someone else. And I said, he has a moment with his daughter. He walks off and he kind of gives his daughter a little hug and a kiss. And it's almost worth getting married and having a kid just for that moment, right? Because in the moment, he's obviously thinking, what have I done professionally? Like that, I cannot believe I've blown this. And then he sees his daughter, which is obviously so much more important than sport. And he has this moment where he just gives her like a hug and a kiss. And I just thought that was a beautiful, beautiful moment for Rory. And then the other thing I thought, just you said sort of everyone was pleased with the ending. I mean, obviously Justin Rose wasn't. And I remember there was a great, the cameras sort of cut to Justin Rose when he's on like the practice screen. And I just thought, what a proper pro that he wasn't even watching what Rory was doing. He was just there, like, putting away, like, doing his own thing. And then someone tells him, oh, yeah, we're in a playoff. And Justin Rose says, okay, I'll just have a couple more, then I'll come over. And I was like, wow, you're such a total composed pro to be in that moment. And then the other thing, Ollie, was, now, Ollie, about a week ago, sent me a clip of, this is Tiger in 2019. Now, you'll describe this better than I can, Ollie. So it's Tiger in 2019, isn't it? Tell me just what the director's saying and why that's important from her, because we're sports broadcasters. Tell our listeners why. Tell us the clip, explain the clip, and explain why it's important. And then I want to talk about what I saw.
It's Tiger in 2019 winning the Masters, which is one of the most improbable Masters victories, because no one expected Tiger to be able to come back from injuries and adversity and getting to the age that he was at that point. And, you know, he's thinking, oh, the old timer, he can't do it, surely. And Tiger fought his way through. Molinari blew it, unfortunately, put 2 in the water on the, I think it was 15. No, sorry, maybe 13. But yeah, Molinari had an absolute blowout anyway in the final round. Tiger goes on to win. And it's a shot from the director's truck. I think we mentioned it last week, actually. The director is just crisply barking out the orders of where he's going with all the cameras. He's relying on his cameramen and trusting them to give him the right shots. And he's just going, 9, hold, 9, we're on you, 9, we're on you, 7, 7, hold, we're on you, 7, 7. And there's a moment where Jim Nantz, who's doing the commentary for CBS and is a phenomenal broadcaster for American football and for golf, knows the perfect level of tone for these sorts of moments. He cues into the director and just says, I'm going to shut up here. And the director just goes, stay quiet, Jim, silent, just cameras. And it's so poignant having moments like that, because there aren't words. I've just tried to explain this Masters Sunday, and I've done it absolutely no justice whatsoever. There aren't words to describe some of those moments and emotions, and staying silent is better than anything else you can do in a moment like that.
So that last thing you said there is so spot on, because when Rory sinks the putt to win the Masters, in my opinion, as a broadcaster and as a commentator, you get one line. Now, we in football, we don't really like scripted lines. In golf, it's a little bit different because you've got a little bit more time to decide your line for the moment, right? And obviously, if you're a broadcaster on that event, Ollie, obviously, you've got your line in your head. You can't help but think, I'll better say this when Rory wins the Masters. It doesn't have to be clever either. It can be, finally Rory has his Grand Slam. You can keep it super simple. But I thought in that moment, and I was watching the Sky Comms, which was great in many ways, and their broadcast was very impressive, but I think that as a broadcaster, you get one line when he sinks the putt, one sort of punchy line to sum it up, and then your co-coms can come in with something else. But then I think when Rory McIlroy is crying and he's breaking down, this literally is a man breaking down, then I think what you said comes into play. As Rory McIlroy is crying, there is absolutely nothing a broadcaster can or should say that could even scratch the surface of the emotion of just the images. And I think in that moment, Sky would have been not well within their rights. They should have just got everyone to be quiet for not 10 seconds, not 20 seconds, but possibly 2 minutes of when Rory's there and he's just crying. And this isn't Andy Murray, by the way. We're not going to see this every year. Like Rory McIlroy crying on the green at the Masters. Like it's incredibly rare. This is a once in a generation, once in a lifetime thing that's going to happen. So I feel like there should have been a greater pause there. And I went back and I did watch the ESPN coverage. Whoever the commentator is there, I think it was ESPN I was watching, but the commentator says, Rory has his masterpiece or something like that. That's the line, fine. Like, it's not, they think it's all over, it is now, but it's a really solid line that sums it all up perfect. And then they do leave way more space and they do shut up. And I just think watching someone cry like that and break down and just have this weight of the world lifted off his shoulders, it didn't require any words at all around it. And I think, and you also need, as a broadcaster, you need the confidence to do that. You need to be extremely secure in your job, your position. You need to also have the director's backing. And when you mentioned Tiger in 2019, to have a director say, like, reaffirm what you've decided to do, like, I'm not going to say anything now, I'm not going to say anything now. And to have a director say, absolutely, yes, that's the right call, don't say anything, don't say anything, don't say anything. You sometimes need that. And I would have loved to be a fly on the wall in the kind of the sky truck for what they were doing there. But yeah, look, I'm not saying it ruined the moment or anything like that. It's just and no one would pick up on it apart from people within the industry and people like Ollie and I who are nerds about this kind of stuff.
No, you're wrong on that. You're very wrong on that because Nick Faldo took an absolute pasting on social media for his broadcasting with Sky this week, and particularly on the Sunday, because unfortunately the number of times that Faldo was kind of caught talking about when I won the Masters, when I did this, because he's got 3 green jackets. He won 3 Opens. He's won 3 times at Augusta. Incredible career. But what we were watching is we were watching Rory have his moment. And there are the number of times I saw the tweet, it's really rude of Rory McIlroy to be stealing Nick Faldo's moment right now. And look, I think Faldo can provide some great insight. I mean, if you watch a full day of golf, you'll hear Nick Faldo on a Masters Sunday reference his 2-iron into 13 about 10 to 15 times, which again...
sorry to interject, Ollie. I did like what Faldo did, though, when he said he was in a playoff once, right? And he said the key thing he said is forget everything that has happened before. The good, the bad, everything in between is dust. It's finished. It's done. Like, burn it to the ground. Like, history is finished. It's all about this playoff right now. And I actually found that insight. I found that really interesting as a psychological tool, that he managed to convince himself that all the missed putts, the missed opportunities, and the good stuff, it was dead. It was just absolutely irrelevant for what was happening right now in the moment. And I did think that was an interesting line. So yeah, this isn't a complete slam of Faldo, but yeah, do go on, Ollie.
No, it's and I think that's right. But that's what a commentator and a co-commentator need to be able to do, is know when to provide that insight and know when to not say anything at all. And you know, we'll see it again, I'm sure, on loads of different occasions in loads of broadcasting, that there are just times when less is sometimes a lot more. And that was definitely a moment where less would have been great. I mean, even I heard Jim Nance's call on CBS of Rory's incredible 7-iron on 15, where he's hit a driver to the left-hand side of the fairway, he's blocked out by trees, you've got water to the front left of the green, and all across, in front of the green. And he just hammers this raking draw high, and it's swooping from right to left down. And Nance just kind of has 2 lines on it about how good the shot is, and then it's just left at that. And unfortunately, at times on the Sky broadcast, every so often, there were the odd moment where there were maybe too many voices chatting, or there's too much acknowledgement of a great shot, because you can just let the shot... We can all understand how good and how big those moments are, I think, as sports fans. And whether you're a golf fan or not, you can recognise the importance of a big moment if, again, you tee it up correctly. That was another thing somebody I heard complaining about, was the fact that precluding that shot, we didn't see enough of the build-up to it, in that Rory was apparently holding an 8-iron. Then he switched to a 7-iron because he saw DeChambeau go into the water, and he was like, no, not going to risk it. We're going to heave the living daylights out of this and make sure it definitely gets there, and we're not dealing with anything in the aqua splash. And even those moments like that are really important to see what the golfer's going through in a big moment like that. And it brings a whole new level to, no, I'm taking an extra club, I'm committing to this, and then I'm going to commit even more with this extra club to the shot. And it opens up, I think, the journey for the fan watching it even more, those little extras of insight. But again, yeah, when it comes... I mean, the nice thing is that Rory McIlroy, Masters, Major, McIlroy. There's a really simple sentence somewhere of like, McIlroy's masterful Majors moment has finally arrived again, or something like that. And then you just sit and let the guy cry. And you mentioned it a moment ago about Justin Rose. There has to be a second place guy. As I say, 3-time runner-up now. I mean, he missed a putt on 17. And you're talking about ruining errors. He's going to be thinking about that putt on 17, because if he makes that, Rory doesn't have a hope in hell. Doesn't go to a playoff. And Rosie wins it and gets that green jacket. And it was an absolute class act, because Rory's friends with Rose. they're on a very united European Ryder Cup team. They get on. I think it's testament to Rory McIlroy as a person, the fact that Shane Lowry obviously stuck around and Tommy Fleetwood as well, two great golfers in their own rights. Lowry had a terrible day on Sunday after kind of getting into a position to maybe challenge for it on Sunday after a great Saturday, but stuck around for the rest of the day to watch Rory come in and win it, and potentially watch Rose come in and win it as well. I mean, two of my favourite golfers. I love Justin Rose. He's so understated, under the radar, 44 years old, and he's still fighting in a major, and he's put his name in the hat massively for a Ryder Cup spot with that sort of effort today. This result just plays on further into the golf season as well, about Rory's future, about Rose's future with that Ryder Cup team, and now the expectations of everyone saying, well, Rory's now got the pressure off. So pressure off, Rory. It's going to be the Grand Slam this year. He's going to win all three of the other majors. And you're like, are we not done? Let him. I don't need to see Rory McIlroy play another golf shot again. Only 6 players have done the career Grand Slam.
Just on Justin Rose, it's funny you mentioned his age. 44?
44, yeah.
44. Yeah. Because it shows we're getting on slightly maybe, because I remember him when he was super young, chipping in from the bunker. Was it at the Open or something? There's on 18. This is 20 years ago or more maybe. When he was sort of early 20s or teenager. I remember that moment well. But calling the fans the patrons. What do we think about that?
Love it. I want to know a few things, because it's really interesting how obviously every single broadcaster has to call them that. You have to. So there's obviously a punishment if you accidentally say fans, and I'm fascinated with knowing what that punishment is. Like, would Augusta say, I don't want you broadcasting here again? You're not going to get banned from Augusta because it doesn't need the cameras, but it also does in that sense. Is there a fine? Like, do the club fine a broadcaster or the individual if you say fans rather than patrons? But I think it adds to the mystique of what is one of the most elite sporting venues opening its doors for a week to the general public. And there is so much mystique to that. The fact that you can go in, but you can't take a phone out, can't have those pictures posing on the 18th. Thing, Ollie,
it's so incredible. So how does it work exactly? So you enter the golf. You're in the golf. Do you know how it works? As in, do you have to give your phone into someone? Does they all get stored in lockers, or are you just not allowed it anywhere on the premises? Or do you know exactly how that works?
You don't take it in. You don't take it in with you at all. You don't take it
to anywhere in the venue?
No. And they have payphones instead. Okay. So they have payphones around Augusta. So if you need to make a phone call, you can go with a quarter, put it in the payphone. It's amazing.
Because my first thought was, what if your wife's 8 months pregnant, or you've got an ill relative, or this kind of stuff. But wow, I mean, incredible. And okay, so can more sporting events do this? Because obviously it's a net positive. I mean, the patrons living so directly in the moment as opposed to through their phones does add something really different. And absolutely no question, by the way. I mean, when was the last time you went an entire day without looking at your phone, right? Most people don't do that on a regular basis. So for those patrons that were there, it's a super unique moment. So do you think other sporting events can do that? Because there's no question that phones have been a net negative for sport, I would say.
I think it can be done. I mean, I've been to stand-up comedians who have done the no mobile phones policy, and you have to put your phone in a sealed pouch that is sealed with a magnet, basically, and only the people as you leave have the ability to unseal it. So if you need to make a call or your phone starts ringing and there's an emergency, you can go outside, someone will unseal it, you make the phone call, but you can't take it out. I think it was Bill Burr that did that at the Royal Albert Hall. And you're so much more engaged, and you're not thinking, God, can somebody just put their freaking phone down and stop taking a picture midway through the comedy gig or something? So I think it could be done. It's difficult to on such a mass scale. I mean, couldn't you do it as you go through a turnstile at the football?
Yeah.
You scan your ticket. I suppose it's all electronic now. There's not a person there, so they can't give the pouches out, and people would refuse, and it would all get a bit testy and stuff like that.
I
Wimbledon.
don't think you can do it. you can't do it for like club football because it's every week. It's part of people's lives. You know, you do need to send a WhatsApp during the game, or like how is Auntie Mary going to pick us up or whatever. So I don't think you can do it at club football, but I think you probably could do it for a World Cup final or a Champions League final, something like that. You could give it a go.
I think Wimbledon would be the place to do it, and I think Wimbledon would actually be better for it. It's that sort of stage. It has that level of gravitas. It has the kind of exclusivity as well, you know, the champagne and strawberries and whatnot. That, yeah, I think Wimbledon, if you go through centre court, right, put your phone in this bag, we'll take it out when you leave centre court, basically. But
yeah, I think I agree. Wimbledon is, because also you've got to have enough historical weight as an institution for people to buy into it, right? That's why, you know, newer sports or newer venues, it just would feel weird. Like if Tottenham did it at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium, you'd be like, oh, hang on, this stadium's only been open a few years. Like you have to have that weight of, which is why Augusta gets away with it, and why somewhere like Wimbledon, it could work well. I think it was really, really special not having your phone at a sporting event. I know some concerts do it as well. And I think as life goes on, Ollie, and people recognise the negative effects of being glued to your screen, that'll become a bigger feature of life in certain places.
The other thing with Augusta is the PGA events, waste management especially, of course. You know, there's a lot of hooting and hollering when somebody hits particularly a big drive or something, and there's people start yelling like mashed potatoes or, you know, stuff like that, Homer Simpson impressions, you know, all that kind of thing. And Augusta, you get thrown out for that. And there were a couple of those a bit late on with like, oh, Bryson, woo, or whatever. But
yeah, I heard.
In general, there's not as many at all. And again, I think the whole atmosphere benefits from not having those like weird, stupid, childish, like mashed potatoes, yeah, sling it, baby. You know, I think my favourite one was a microphone accidentally heard one of the patrons just saying, fucking hell, he smashed the shit out of that. which is far more genuine than somebody priming up a line that they want to yell out just on the just after contact's made with the ball. Much better to have that as a realistic reaction, even if the broadcasters have to apologise for the swearing. So, yeah, there are so many things that you can learn from Augusta in terms of hosting maybe events like Wimbledon. The trouble is it's so difficult to implement because it's a bit like a Sir Alex Ferguson and the manager after him, whoever it was going to be. Sir Alex has that respect. Augusta is Sir Alex Ferguson of like, you do it my way, you don't do it at all. But you think if the waste management down in Phoenix tried to implement that, David Moyes comes in, nah, mate, you haven't earned that at all. We're not going to give you that level of respect. Now I'm getting my phone out straight away. Thank you very much. You can jog on, son.
It's a left field analogy, but I like the way Wilson's brain works. Just on Rory, I didn't realise he was 35, Ollie. For some reason, I thought he was late 30s, but 35, so relatively young. And I was looking down the list of the oldest golfers to win a major, and obviously Jack Nicklaus won his last one when he was 46. Possibly a bit of a different era in terms of the physicality of the sport, right? Tiger won his last one when he was 43. So I know you said that now. Certainly yesterday in the broadcasting, there was a lot of like, now the weight's been lifted off Rory's shoulders. Why can't he go on and win 3, 4, 5 more? And when you look at his age, and that is true that the weight is now off his shoulders, and now he's 35, you know, why can't he have another decade at the top where he wins, you know, one every couple of years and he ends up with 10 and 11? No, he's not going to get close to Jack Nicklaus and Tiger and what they've done in terms of the accumulation of majors. But yeah, there's no reason, right, if he doesn't stay fit and healthy, that certainly up till 40, he can nudge up that list, because there's so many players. If you look at the list of major winners historically, there are a lot that are on that kind of 5, 6, 7 majors. And if Rory were to go up to like 8, 9, 10, suddenly you become in a much more exclusive club. And there's only a few. There's only, obviously, Jack Nicklaus has the most and then Tiger. But like after that, really, Rory could look at that list and think, hang on, I could probably get underneath Tiger and be third on that all-time list if I stay healthy for the next 10 years and win, as I say, one every sort of couple of years.
It's definitely a possibility, but he is already in the top 6 golfers, arguably, of all time because of the position he's put himself in with the career Grand Slam. And I know he's only got, 5 majors at the moment. 5, yeah. But, and there was a really good point that was made last night. Doing the career Grand Slam, I think, is better than, say, Faldo's 3 green jackets and 3 opens. Because the different technical skills to win each of those majors some people might have a game that is very much suited to links golf. So the Open is a possibility. The US Open is tight with like nasty, dusty rough, tends to be really thick, horrible rough as well whenever they set up a US Open course. The PGA Championship is a slightly easier course of the majors because it's just a slightly more difficult setup to a PGA regular tour season course. And then you have Augusta, which is like, I mean, I described Augusta as being like reading a novel, whereas somewhere like where the Players' Championship is at TP Sawgrass is like reading a pop-up book. Sawgrass, it's easy to see where the danger is because the water's big and it's there and the fairways are big, or there's the miss. Augusta is like, it's such attention to detail. It's like playing snooker. You're putting yourself from the tee shot on a par 5 into position to be able to get your putt down from that spot on the green that you've earmarked as where you need to land. So everything is 3 shots behind where you actually want to be playing at the end of the hole. And it's all about setting yourself up. And because there's such a different skill set for each of these majors, that's why it's so difficult to do a career Grand Slam, let alone a Grand Slam. I mean, that's only ever been done once by Walter Hagen, I think it was, who...
I'm looking at the stats now, and he was sort of way back in the 20s, Ollie, so it's 100 years ago now. How did Jack Nicklaus win 18? Was he just that good? Was it the era that he was in, less competition, or am I taking anything away from him there? Or I mean, because Tiger's got 15, so how did Jack Nicklaus win 18 majors?
Well, some people think Tiger's actually underperformed in his career with the golfing gifts that he had, and that he should have more than Jack Nicklaus, which is a pretty bold thing to say when you think about the years at number one, the records that not anybody's going to come close to competing at in terms of consistency of golf. But it's also an arguable point. I think Jack Nicklaus was just an exceptional golfer for his time, but I also think Jack recognises that like the golf he was playing is very different to the golf that is played now. You know, Augusta's been reshaped.
He was 62 to 86, for example. You know, so 60s, 70s, early 80s.
Well, that's the thing. Augusta has been reshaped because they've had to move tee boxes further and further back because people like Rory and Bryson can drive a ball 360 yards. You know, that couldn't be done back in Jack Nicklaus's day. So they were playing much shorter holes, but with lesser equipment as well. But it wasn't so much on that physical prowess, I think, more than anything else. It was accuracy and control. And it was just, an era that Jack obviously was able to thrive. I mean, I didn't watch, obviously, Jack Nicklaus very much because I wasn't even born at the time that he was winning majors. So it's a little difficult to have much of a retrospective on it. But I think it's very much just he was the great of his era. And then someone like Tiger came along. I mean, the additions or the changes they made to Augusta, I think in 08 or 09, was called Tiger-proofing Augusta because Tiger went there and just had power that nobody had ever really seen before. And it's continued to be that way. And they'll have what's called, I don't know if you know this, the rollback that's coming into golf. So all golf balls at the moment are going to be null and void for competition in about 4 years' time because they are reducing the amount of power that can be generated and ball speed that can be generated in the golf ball to try and take 25 yards off every single player to make them have to play these courses more tactically rather than just hammering it down there. And also so the courses don't have to keep looking for more space. You know, Augusta bought an area of land from another golf course that's next door because they needed to move tee boxes around and move greens around to lengthen the course to make it difficult. The old course up at St Andrews is too short now, and it's actually more interesting when the Women's Open goes up there than when the Men's Open does because the men can, you know, they're hitting driver wedge on a par 4, they're hitting driver 7-iron on a par 5 rather than having to take driver 4-iron and then maybe a wedge in as well on a par 5 because they've just got too much power. So the rollback is going to change things quite a bit as well as we go on. Sorry, I'm getting way off track.
No. Oh, just you know, we've done 40 minutes on golf, Ollie. I don't think we're going to be doing that again. Probably, I was just about to say probably till the Ryder Cup, which is when? Remind us.
Ryder Cup's coming up towards the end of the year, September time. We'll definitely have something from the Open because Portrush, Rory's home. People will want Rory to win that. And
do you take my point, Ollie, that obviously he's done the career Grand Slam and the dust will settle on that, and he'll feel for a few weeks or months maybe that he's done it and he's achieved it. But a man of that level of ambition will inevitably, we know what it's like. It's always more with these sports stars, and you have that elite psychology that you want more. So when the dust has settled and Roy's like, oh, okay, I've done that now, what's next? Do you think he does look at that list and think, I've got 5, I wonder if I could get to 10 in my career and only have 3 players in the history of golf ahead of me?
Yeah, I definitely think that ambition is there. In the same way, I think immediately at this point, there are 2 things that are right in his mind. He will enjoy this for sure. The release of the pressure, the emotion. I mean, he was nearly in tears in the first interview that he did after the victory, just saying, like, I can't wait to go and be with my parents and enjoy the celebration.
When he has the green jacket on, when he's in that,
in the butler cabin, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, my fiance was crying today. She watched it because she missed it last night, and it was on, and she was crying at watching that interview because it was great. It was so nice.
Mate, nothing will make you cry more than watching someone else cry. Like, it's watching Rory last night, and you said he was almost crying. I mean, mate, he was in tears, and it's obviously quite a, I don't want to say stuffy because that immediately brings negative connotation, but you know what, for a man to be crying in that kind of situation that is probably a little bit more stiff upper lip, old school America is. Wow. I mean, what a day.
I think Rory now, once he enjoys this celebration for a few weeks, he'll go the Open in Ireland and winning a Ryder Cup at Bethpage Black in New York at what is going to be one of the most intense Ryder Cup atmospheres that we'll have heard for years. And I think those will immediately, because he loves the Ryder Cup as well, will switch his mind straight back into let's go be a killer again. And the thing is like, he has done it, and I'm so glad that he won this major, that he ended the drought and got the career Grand Slam all in one swoop. Because if he wins the Open, everyone goes, well, he's still got to win Augusta. But he's done it now. He has ticked it all off this, so he can just go out and be like, I do whatever I need to do and whatever I want at this point because I've joined that elite group. And yeah, I think he will be locked in, though, for these next 2 big ones in the Open and the Ryder Cup. And then after that, yeah, he'll just be right on to the next one. Every great athlete is a bit of a psychopath and has those goals they want to get to. And Rory's got that. He's definitely got that.
Right, it feels a little bit anticlimactic, but let's rattle through some other sports stories this week, Ollie, in the next 20 minutes or so, if anyone cares. Let's just go to football momentarily. I mean, the Premier League, we've mentioned this a few times. It's sort of, from the neutral perspective, it's kind of the relegation battle's done, the Premier League title battle's done. Yes, there's this race for Champions League spots. It's not hugely exciting. I mean, I just had a couple of points from the weekend, really. How on earth are Tottenham and Man United a game away from the semi-finals of the Europa League? I mean, this is the poorest version of both of those two sides in 10 years, 15 years, 20 years that I can remember. They're both awful, have received criticism all year, and yet they are, 4 games away from winning one of the biggest trophies in the sport in the Europa League and getting a place in the Champions League next season. It's kind of, is that a bit odd that we've got 2 English sides that are terrible that are a game away from placing the semi-finals of the Europa League?
Yeah, I think it shows how far the Europa League has fallen, unfortunately, and how the increased number of teams in the Champions League and into the Europa League and the Europa Conference League have diluted the quality. And
because sides don't drop down from the Champions League anymore, you mean? Or not?
Well, and because of the teams that are just in it in general. I mean, I think we all said at the beginning of the year, you look at the Conference League, that's Chelsea's in their hands already, considering the teams that are in it and the level of football that we know that Chelsea can play. The interesting one is Tottenham and United have had such terrible seasons when it comes to the domestic campaign. But yeah, I mean, still right in the hunt for being able to... I mean, United did have a tricky time with Lyon, obviously, in the first leg. But yeah, I think it just shows how tough it is to, almost as a fan, get yourself up for the number of games that we're seeing in the Europa League and the Conference League because of the level that we're kind of getting. And it is great that other teams are able to enjoy European football, but I'd rather see other teams enjoying it because of excellence rather than because of we've got another 6 places to fill.
It's an interesting midweek selection of European games, actually, Ollie, because the Champions League really is kind of done. I mean, Villa under the lights at Villa Park, maybe that is a proper once-in-a-generation kind of night for them. They're 3-1 down against PSG. That's the only tie that I think is still in the balance. I think Barcelona 4-0 up against Dortmund, that's done. And then I think this Real Madrid side is not good enough to score 3 goals against Arsenal. There's no doubt about that in my mind. So I think Arsenal are through. If you want, we can reflect on my prediction. But I mean, I get plenty wrong and I get plenty right. So there we go.
Well, the gloating about the prediction for last week was nullified very quickly as soon as the podcast ended with the my video's not worked on this, so it's going to be an audio only this week, Dave. So there was a comment about glass houses and throwing stones as well in that podcast, which was
yes, for listeners last week, I gave Ollie Wilson some lip for his audio being faulty on the podcast before, and then my video subsequently didn't work. So there we go. But Arsenal 3-0 up against Real Madrid. I guess, look, I mean, Inter went to Bavaria and they won 2-1 against Bayern Munich last week. They're 2-1 up in the tie. I'm backing Inter to win the whole thing, by the way. I think they might do it. I've just got a sneaky feeling they might do it. So yeah, the Champions League, as I say, is kind of it looks pretty foregone. And then the Europa League is just wide open. I mean, Athletic Club home against Rangers after the 0-0. Eintracht Frankfurt home against Tottenham. It's 1-1 first leg. Lazio lost 2-0 against Bodo Glimt, which is a bit of a surprise in that first leg. But Ollie, you know all about Lazio. Under the lights, the flares will be out of the Olympica. I mean, you'd almost fancy them to turn that round, and then Man United and Lyon at Old Trafford after a 2-2 draw in France. So, I mean, the Europa League certainly looks interesting from that perspective.
Also, Lazio had the Rome derby on their minds, perhaps, as well. That was on Sunday, a 1-1 draw against Roma. So, yeah, the trip to Bodo Glimt, not as big a priority, and the idea that they can probably get the job done on home soil. And I think that can be said, actually, for the Rangers game. You were, of course, bigging up Athletic Club. The story is sensational, always has been with that football club. But Rangers needed that second leg to be at home, I think, to have a chance, because it's a tough place to go and win. We've seen in both clubs from Glasgow, obviously Celtic and Rangers, tough places to go for sides in the Champions League. But away from home, they struggle. They always tend to struggle. And I think it's more likely to be curtains for Rangers with a second leg away in Spain this week. So,
yeah, and I think Scottish clubs normally at home, they can carve out some kind of big result. The emotion of the crowds, it helps them out. But yeah, I agree. Away in Bilbao, you'd expect Rangers to struggle. If they could get a result there, it's one of the biggest results in recent times for them.
I like your tip on Inter, by the way, and it was a discussion we were having. Lautaro Martinez.
Underrated.
Maybe the best out-and-out centre-forward in Europe.
I would have loved to see him in the Premier League over the years. I think he's so good. No one talks about him, really. And the best centre-forward...
Out-and-out centre-forward, like traditional centre-forward. He's a goal scorer. Harry Kane's up there, obviously. Lautaro Martinez.
Yeah, I remember talking about Lautaro Martinez when he signed that extension at Inter, Ollie. I think might have been about 6 months ago or something. And he signed, bearing in mind he's whatever he is now, 27, 28. Ollie and he signed a 4-year deal with Inter. And I remember thinking at the time, wow, that's you really saying I'm staying at Inter. And I guess I'm a little bit surprised over the years that, I don't know, a big boy in the Premier League hasn't been like gone into here's 120 million. We'll take him off your hands. And Italian clubs are going to... It's going to be hard to say no to that kind of money, but obviously Lautaro Martinez wants to stay at Inter, and he probably wants to win the Champions League with Inter. That's the thing missing for him, isn't it? So, yeah,
you could argue Liverpool could do with him, except they have signed Mo Salah to a 2-year deal now, which at least will shut this whole saga up. Finally, I mean, this needed to be done weeks ago.
It's too much. It's been too much. I agree. I hate the individualization of the sport, and the contract stuff this season has been ridiculous. I think it's been ridiculous. I think in signing Mo Salah, what they've done, and signing Virgil van Dijk, which is going to go through this week, I think what the Liverpool hierarchy have done is just bought themselves a little bit of time, Ollie, because you just have those two players for 2 more years. And by the way, I think it's very smart from the club not to give them 3 or 4 years. I think that would have been ridiculous. I think it just buys the club 2 more years. Now, in 2 years' time, is Mo Salah going to be as good as he is now? Probably not, you would say. But it just buys the club 2 years to replace those players. Whereas if both of them left this summer, you're thinking, oh my God, we've got to go out and we do have to spend 140 million on Lautaro Martinez and just hope it works. We've got to replace those goals. We've got to replace one of the best centre-backs the Premier League's ever seen. So it just gives Liverpool a little bit of time, I think. You keep the consistency around the club, around the squad, in the first 11, and it means you can win a title and the squad that arrives at pre-season at the end of July, people are looking around and thinking, okay, yeah, this is the same group of players. We know the leadership structure. We know that Mo's going to score this amount of goals. We know what Virgil van Dijk does. So even with Trent leaving, which still isn't confirmed actually, even with Trent leaving, I think it provides a nice bit of consistency for Arne Slot.
And have you seen any better free kicks than from David Declan, as he's now going to be known, Declan Rice? I mean,
it's two great free kicks. I think Arsenal didn't win the Champions League last week. I think the Arsenal fan base, is fairly ludicrous anyway. But you honestly would have thought, Ollie, they won the Champions League. I mean, it's not that unique to beat Real Madrid. It's not like English clubs have beaten Real Madrid in recent years. Liverpool beat them earlier in the season in the group stage of the competition. So I think there was a classic Arsenal fan base thing of just getting so excited and acting like they've already won the Champions League. But that's just Arsenal, isn't it? And look, if you can't celebrate a 3-0 home win against Real Madrid in the knockout stage of the Champions League, then maybe football's not for you. You've got to get excited. I get it, and I think they cruised through the second leg, by the way. But, they've probably got PSG in the semi-finals, and I back PSG to go through. So, yeah, I don't know. It's two incredible free kicks, isn't it? Yeah.
Madrid are only 11-2 in the bookies. It's short odds,
That's just the name, though.
Under 6-1.
I mean, it's the third goal that gets you, isn't it? They walk away 2-0 down and you think, wow, you score first at the Bernabeu and it's game on. The third, I think, this is an Arsenal side for all their faults. They are pretty good defensively. Can't see them conceding 3 goals. It's always the same, Ollie. Mbappe or Vinny Jr. scores after 7 minutes and suddenly the whole tie looks and feels incredibly different. But I think I can't see it. I personally can't see it. I mean, Mbappe got sent off at the weekend. Obviously, that was in the domestic league. He's not going to be suspended for the Champions League. But this is a Real Madrid side that is clinging on to the La Liga title race. They're still 4 points behind Barcelona with whatever it is, 6-7 games to play. They're in the Copa del Rey final as well. But the whole season, Real Madrid have been sort of etching out results. This is not a classic Real Madrid side, so I'd be astonished if they come back against Arsenal. Astonished.
And a quick touch on the best title race in football right now, the Sky Bet Championship, that's seen Sheffield United absolutely wet the bed. 3 straight losses after being unbeaten in their previous 5, 4 wins from 5. And then they lose to a struggling Oxford United. They lose to a Millwall side that are trying to knock on the door for the playoffs. And then they lose away against Plymouth Argyle, also massive strugglers in the Championship this season. And I can't put my finger on it because all 3 of these sides, Burnley, Leeds and Sheffield United, have been mixing around so much. And going into that game against Oxford, Sheffield United, league leaders, Burnley a third, Leeds second. And then the table just does a complete rejig after the Oxford defeat for Sheffield United. And now they're right behind the 8 ball and really struggling to keep in contact with the top 2. I mean, Burnley have had a draw and a win in their last 2, so it does give Chris Wilder's side a little bit more room. But I did the Millwall game last week, and I've never heard a ground, considering Bramall Lane is meant to be tight, enclosed, you're on top of the pitch. That's the way to get the fans rallying right behind you in these key moments for the end of the season. And Bramall Lane was silent for most of that game. And Millwall score, and you could only hear the away end for a large part of it. I've never heard such a flat, tepid ground, considering as well what we get. Leeds United week in, week out. Ellen Road's absolutely raucous, even up at Turf Moor for Burnley. There's so much more noise. And Wilder had a falling out with some of the fans after the Oxford loss because he said that he found it insulting and it was a joke that some of the supporters that travelled to Oxford and saw them lose were booing them at full time. And it almost feels like the supporters took that on the chin and were like, well, sod you then. We're not getting behind you. And it's a dangerous game to play because Wilder's one of those guys that I think is like a grab your side by the scruff of the neck, old school manager. And I don't know in the modern day game if that lasts for a full 46 game season in the Championship of driving a team through with that attitude. And if you lose the fan base a bit as well, it's just a weird one. It's a really weird one.
A couple of other football stories that caught my eye this week. I mean, I'm out here in South America, so I just want to reference one thing in the Copa Libertadores, South America's Champions League. So Peter Shilton holds the record, Ollie, for the most ever professional appearances, 1,387, right? And Fabio, the Fluminense goalkeeper, Brazilian side Fluminense, he now has 1,359. So he's he's going to break it. Like, barring an ACL or something like that, he's going to break it. He's 44 years of age, Fabio. As I say, he's the goalkeeper for Fluminense. And it might not happen this season, although it might, depending on how far Fluminense go in the Sudamericana, which is South America's Europa League. But yeah, I just think that's a record that's lasted an awful long time. And Fabio's not just going to break that record. He'll break it this season or early next season. He could smash it. Because as a goalkeeper in South America, I mean, he can play till he's 47, 48. So I think it's a record that's going to go. It's been long-standing from Peter Shilton. I know Cristiano Ronaldo wants it as well, or he's shaking his head.
Not as impressive if Fabio does
What's not as impressive?
Breaking that record. It's not as impressive as Peter Shilton.
I think it's
Think
more...
about how many games, like the freaking regional torneo, the overly bloated Brazilian Serie A. He's playing so many more games a year anyway than Peter Shilton.
But he needs to be in much better shape. You know, Peter Shilton, he was sort of, at the end of his career, it wasn't in the same degree of physicality and professionalism and stuff like that. So he sort of, I mean, I wonder what kind of shape he was in for his last few
Yeah,
months.
I guess he was obviously slipping down the leagues and everything. But I just think, I don't find it as impressive when you are in a bloated Brazilian football league.
All right, Fabio, your career's been trashed. Right, the next one, the next thing, Ollie, I've got. By the way, I really like this country so much. I've got great affinity with Argentina, and right now the sun's shining, and I'm looking over the crumbling buildings, and I really like the people here, and I think there's some amazing parts of the culture, and I think in the next 50 to 100 years, Argentina might be one of the biggest hedges against the collapse of Western civilization. But, Ollie, one thing I detest here and loathe with every fibre of my being is the car culture. And every time you get in a car here, you're dead. So every time I get out of a taxi, it's like, wow, I just cheated death. The car culture here is just so insanely low IQ. It is terrifying. I've pleaded with the taxi drivers. I've tried to justify it. I've asked them nicely. I've tried to logic them. It just doesn't work. Every taxi driver here wants to drive half a metre behind the car in front for no apparent reason. For absolutely no apparent reason. It is an astonishingly low IQ move. And as I say, I just had to get that off my chest before I talk about it.
No. The therapy might be needed because you're doing a lot of car journeys as well in Argentina. I know those journeys well. And look, the most Argentinian driving moment I think I ever had in that country was when our taxi driver rear-ended somebody, then pretended that they were going to pull over, and then decided as the car in front that he'd rear-ended pulled over to the side, he went off to the side and then went, nah, go fuck yourself, and drove off. And like, this isn't like a dodgy Uber or whatever. This is a car that was like, it's a car service that's been sorted by the company we're working for. And it's like,
I thought you were going to say something else. Ollie and I were once whizzing down the Argentine Autopista at 1 a.m. and we were talking about how crazy the country is. And there was a moment's pause, probably like 10 seconds, and then this is 1 a.m. down the motorway, and then to our left-hand side, this car just overtook us, and out of the window was, I can only use the word dangling, Ollie, dangling a small child that obviously the parents thought it was okay for A, like a 6-year-old to be awake at 1 a.m, B, be whizzing down the motorway at 120 miles an hour, and C, be like leaning out of the window. And I was like, I have not seen anything like that.
Not strapped in. Just let the kids do what they want.
Absolutely insane. Right, do you know how many
child
countries
was
there are in
taking
the
the
world?
place? The child was taking the place of a dog. You just see the dog with the head out, and it was instead, a small child.
You know how much they love their dogs here in LATAM. So, do you know how many countries there are in the world in 2025?
174.
Not bad, 195.
Okay.
Because I think a lot of places like Vatican City and Andorra and stuff sort of sneak into that.
They
People might
identify
forget
as a
this.
country. Yeah, okay.
Yeah, that kind of thing. So there's 195 countries in the world. Now the 2030 World Cup, Ollie, to take place in South America, kind of, but mainly in Europe. They've pitched the idea of a 60-team World Cup. Now we know that the World Cup next summer in the US and Mexico, the 2026 World Cup, is going to be a 48-team World Cup. So CONMEBOL, which is like South America's UEFA, it's the governing body, they've pitched the 2030 World Cup to be a 60-team World Cup. I mean, I'm at the point now where let's just make it a 195-team World Cup. Let's just have every country in the world, you're all in the World Cup. The qualification can just be kind of friendlies maybe. and then you just have it as a straight knockout. So you make sure obviously it's an even number, and then you just have this 195-team World Cup. So there's no group stages. It's literally just an open draw, a straight knockout. So you could have Brazil against Vatican City in the first round, and you just whittle it down over 2 months, because the 60-team World Cup, I mean, if you logically follow the pattern of what has been, this is obviously going to happen, right? Like it was 32-team World Cup, now 48. Like, why wouldn't it be a 60-team World Cup? And if you've got a 60-team World Cup, then why not on a 120-team World Cup? So, I don't know. What do we think? A 60-team World Cup in 2030?
I think I'm sticking the Pope in goal for Vatican City. It's not a single Roman Catholic's going to put one past the Pope.
He's pretty injured at the moment.
Strong, solid between the sticks. Pop him up. He's got a staff he can use as well. I mean, yeah, what we were just talking about, the Europa League and the Europa Conference League, about there being maybe just too many sides playing too much continental football, and that means that the value and the quality of the football drops. You know, everybody gets in. Like, it's fine. It's like having a participation trophy for every single person enters a competition. Like, nice. It's all well and good. Like, that's not sport. That's the trouble. Everybody deserves a chance, but you earn your chance. That's what sport is, by achieving excellence and getting rewarded. It's not about, well, we want to have... I mean, the CONMEBOL think there's going to be, you know, half of those spots, those extra 12 spots are going to end up going to South American countries. Like, is that the idea? So they can guarantee Venezuela, Chile, Bolivia. I mean, we've covered enough of their football in the Libertadores and the CONMEBOL Sudamericana to know that no one's turning up for a Venezuelan game, because the country's in such a state right now. And I don't use that lightly. It's incredibly sad what's happened to Venezuela over the last kind of 5 years. And then the quality of the football itself, you know, the Venezuelan and Bolivian sides, outside of playing in the altitude in Bolivia, end up being the absolute whipping boys in a large number of these competitions. And that's not, again, doing a disservice to the international teams, but what is the reason for putting in a lesser side so they have a chance to get knocked out by a big team at some point? I mean, yeah, I don't understand. It's just money and the growth of the game, but it's the growth of the wallet more than the game, isn't it? So
I also think that we've got to have at least 2 or 3 48-team World Cups before we start messing around with 60. I mean, yeah, we need to see how that goes first. Any other business, Ollie? There's one thing I want to talk about, and then I'll let you talk about F1. There's a football club called Real Bedford, right? Bedford, for those that don't know, is a town somewhere between London and Birmingham. Is it near you?
It's in Bedford,
okay.
Which is where I am. Yeah, it's about 25 minutes away, yeah. Okay.
So the club is owned, Real Bedford, by a local businessman called Pete McCormack, born and bred in Bedford, obviously loves the town. And he bought the club, renamed it Real Bedford. And he's got quite a big podcast. He's sort of a Bitcoiner, and he's got different entrepreneurial ventures in the town of Bedford. Now, obviously, they're way down the footballing pyramid. They've won, since he took over, they've been promoted 3 times in 3 seasons, Ollie, right? Another 3, and they're in the Football League. So when he joined, he said, look, I want 6 promotions in 6 seasons to get us in the Football League, to get us in the EFL, League 2. So he's got 3 from 3. And the women's team, by the way, has done the exact same. So the women's and the men's team have got 3 promotions in 3. 3 more, and they're in the Football League. Now, I know this is mainly money that's happened. He's a successful businessman. He's pumped money into it, and he's been really successful. But he's also trying to do something good for his community. Where this gets interesting for me is that the football club is actually backed financially and in other ways by the Winklevoss twins. What do you know about the Winklevoss twins, Ollie?
Yeah, Facebook. The guys that claim that they created Facebook and, yeah, got a very healthy financial backing behind them. Yeah.
Yeah, so allegedly, they'll tell you that Mark Zuckerberg stole their idea and created Facebook, and Zuckerberg would say that he created Facebook, and the Winklevoss twins claim they did. And obviously this is popularised by the film The Social Network. Now, they're billionaires, the Winklevoss twins. How are they billionaires? Well, they about 12 years ago, they bought 1% of the world's supply of Bitcoin. And I know Ollie's not a big Bitcoiner fan, but essentially, if you bought 1% of the world's supply of Bitcoin 10 years ago, you are extremely wealthy. They're both billionaires. They pump money into this football club. And I don't know, I was thinking, Ollie, there can't be too many clubs that far down the footballing pyramid in any country that are backed by billionaires, right? I mean, to be a billionaire, it's an awful lot of money. So I think it's a very interesting story to keep an eye on over the next few years. This isn't even Wrexham. Like, these guys are rich, okay? They own a Bitcoin trading app called Gemini, but obviously they've got a huge payoff on Facebook, etc., etc. Now, what makes it interesting as well is the Winklevoss twins actually went to Bedford last weekend to watch Bedford win that title. And for Bedford, a kind of nondescript town in the middle of England, for two, I'm not going to say the Winklevoss boys are household names, but they're pretty well known globally and to be billionaires. For them to actually go to Bedford and watch Real Bedford win the title, I think it's a really interesting one to keep an eye on, Ollie, over the next few years because, another 3 and they're in the Football League, and from there, if you're backed by billionaires, anything's possible.
Well, we'll be able to keep an eye on it because 1,000% there's already a documentary crew following this for sure. Like, that's the reason why these things are done, isn't it? You know, the Winklevoss twins see we can invest in this, but we can also make money off it by making a documentary because everybody makes a documentary about anything that happens in sport at this point.
I mean, so far they would have lost money, Ollie. There's no way they could have made any money from Real Bedford. Like, that they can only have lost money. I get it, it's a longer term play, and when you're billionaires, you can afford to lose a few mil here and there. But they can only have lost money.
Oh yeah, they're probably not losing a few million at this point though either. I mean, it's semi-professional football, right? So wages are going to be a few pounds a week. That's it. But I mean, it's interesting. It will be more interesting to see what the Winklevoss twins do when they get to somewhere like the National League North, National League South, as it would be the Vanarama National League, and then obviously up into the EFL, because that's when things, if you want to make money, that's when things will get really serious. But you also then need to start doing things like buying football stadiums, making sure your stadium is up to standard to be able to play in those leagues, which is a big kind of step to overcome for a lot of these really small sides in the semi-professional game. And the National League is already pretty much a professional league. I think there's only 3 teams or 4 teams now in the Vanarama National League that run at semi-professional level. So, yeah, it'll be interesting. The fact it's the Winklevoss twins doesn't make it more interesting to me. It's more the complexities of when you get to these big stepping points and how invested whoever the billionaire owners would be are in making this a real thing.
The reason the Winklevoss twins interest me, Ollie, is because whatever you think about what happened with Facebook, they on some level predicted the future of social interaction, yeah? Like, that's what Zuckerberg did with Facebook and in the Winklevoss twins, whether it was their idea or they had a similar idea or whatever happened, and only those 3 men will ever know. Like, they kind of did predict the future of social media and social interactions. And in their backing of Bitcoin, whatever you think about Bitcoin, they also were visionaries in terms of what the future of money can look like as well. And so I think when you've got 2 billionaires that I mean, they came from money, they went to Harvard, I get it, but there's a lot of people that did that and haven't had their track record of success in multiple disciplines. I think now to kind of turn your hand to sport, it's just an interesting endeavor. Does that ability to see into the future and make big bets that actually come off, does that translate to sport as well? I don't know. We've seen plenty of examples where it doesn't, but we've also seen some good examples where it does.
Financial scouting is very different to scouting the technical abilities of a National League centre-back. But yeah, I get what you're saying. Yeah, I mean, it's weird as well that Bedford's not it's a reasonably big place, but it's not, you don't consider it a hub of any sport whatsoever. So yeah, maybe in a few years' time.
Ollie's going to be sending the demo tape after this pod, by the way, to
the Winklevoss
early on their highlights packages.
Yeah. Look, if they need a professional voice, maybe a commentator.
Local lad, Bedford born and bred, basically, Mr. Wilson. That's how you can picture.
Yeah, it's 25 minutes away. I'll take a trundle up on a Saturday for $1,000. Yeah.
The town. What's the town?
I
don't know. Is it nice? Is it not nice?
I've only ever been on basically a couple of dates up there more than anything else. So I've just had a wander through the park and the river that runs through it. It's all right. Like, it's not horrible.
Okay.
But it's not like glorious English countryside or anything. It's a bit more. It's a bit more kind of a 1970s, 80s glow up that doesn't look that glowed up anymore. But it's not. Yeah, it's not a nasty place. I don't think.
Did you see that? Not to venture too far off the sports track here, but did you see that Universal building a whole studio in Bedford or near Bedford? Did you see that story this week?
Yeah,
and
they're going to build a new.
I just wondered, that feels to me like too much of a coincidence. As in, the Winklevoss boys have invested in a football club, and then at the same time, Universal have pumped billions, or are going to pump billions into a part, as you say, kind of an odd place for that to happen. So I just wonder if there must have been
You've got the catchment
it's too much
between
of a
Birmingham and
coincidence.
London, so they know that there is, and it's near major routes like the M1, the A1, so you can get up and down from those areas reasonably easily. You've got the Nottingham's not too far from there either, kind of thing. So there's a big catchment area of the Midlands and the Southeast that you can hit, and it's probably not the most expensive place to own land and property at this point compared to, you know, the further south you go, when you get to somewhere like Watford and get into Three Counties, Hertfordshire kind of way. I mean, extortionate, and the amount of development taking place. So Bedford could be like the next untapped resource as you're leaving London more than anything else, and with, you know, greater and greater transport links being set up, you know, Universal have probably seen that and thought, yeah, okay, we can kind of use that.
And have the Winklevoss boys seen that and thought, yeah, we could build a 50,000 seater stadium here for a tenth of the price that we could do in London or Manchester or Liverpool or Newcastle?
I mean, they're just predicting the future, as you say, Dave, and they've seen it coming a mile off. It'd be very interesting.
Clip this up for 2035's pod when they're in the Champions League. Right, wrap us up with some F1, Ollie.
Very quick, because I've only caught the highlights of it, because funnily enough, the television from 2:00 every day was very much focused on the Masters, aside from Saturday when I was actually working, doing some work for once. So, Lando Norris struggling all weekend in Bahrain. Max Verstappen not exactly having a great weekend either, but Oscar Piastri, the young Australian, is throwing his name right in the hat to be able to compete with Lando, his teammate at McLaren. And, really impressive drive in Bahrain, very composed, led from the start, got the job done while all others were kind of losing their head behind him slightly. And it just shows that McLaren have a dominant car. And not a bad run out either for Yuki Tsunoda, who's replaced Liam Lawson at Red Bull, which was a bit harsh on Liam Lawson getting sacked after 2 races into the season. But Yuki Tsunoda making the step up, the poison chalice that is being Max Verstappen's partner at Red Bull. And it looks like he's got the kind of guts and cavalier attitude at times with his driving that he's going to be able to hopefully get used to that car and try and compete up alongside Max. And Max, I think, is the only one who can stop McLaren this year. But it's going to be really tough when both racers have the ability to win races quite comfortably at McLaren. The difference is which horse does the team back, because they want a drivers' championship. You know, the constructors is lovely, but all the attention goes to a drivers' world championship winner, and you don't want to have Norris and Piastri taking points off each other to allow Verstappen to keep his name in the title fight. So you might end up having to back one horse, Zach Brown, and do you go with the young Australian or the English guy that's kind of been with you for this whole time and re-emergence of McLaren? So that's something to keep the eye on going into the rest of the Formula 1 season.